This is Dr. Mariah White, host of Your Life Matters. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media.
Hello. Welcome, and thank you for joining the Confessions of a Military Spouse podcast on whatever day it is that you are listening to this. I am your host, Jenna Burt. I'm a military spouse of 10 years, a mom, a registered and certified dental assistant, and a certified phlebotomist. I just want to, again, thank you for taking me with you wherever you are and being here today. And if you find that anything in today's episode resonates with you, or if you know of someone else who might be interested in hearing this episode, please feel free to share it. And as you guys know, I appreciate any and all feedback. So if you would like to leave me some feedback, please feel free to email me at confessionsofamilspouse@gmail.com. You can find me on Facebook at Confessions of a Military Spouse, Instagram at Confessions of a Mil Spouse, or at publichousemedia.org. So today we are going to be continuing on with our special guest mini summer series, and I am super excited to welcome my next guest, who is a veteran, active duty military spouse, and a podcast host herself. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Amy Long, who is the owner of the Daily Hostess. Thank you, Amy, so much for being here with me today. I'm so excited to have you, especially as another podcaster. So thank you.
You're so welcome, Jenna. I'm so happy to be here and excited to talk with you today.
Yes. So I want you to go ahead and tell our listeners a little bit about yourself, your background. Like I said, you are obviously super involved in the military community, both as active duty and then as a spouse and a veteran, and a little bit about how the Daily Hostess got started. Because let me just tell you guys, the Daily Hostess is amazing. So I want everybody else to hear about it as well.
Well, thanks for the opportunity to kind of tell my story. It starts in college where I met my husband, and we were both going through the Navy ROTC program. We both got commissioned as officers out of that program, and I spent 6 years active duty as a surface warfare officer in the Navy. I was on a couple different ships, one out of Pearl Harbor and one out of San Diego, and then I did a shore duty in San Diego as well. So we've been dual military our whole time that we've been together. We spent a lot of time away from each other because of that. But once we decided to have a family, it just made more sense for me to get off of active duty. So I left active duty, and I've since been a reservist for 6 years now. So over 12 years now in the military myself. My husband's almost to 20. So that's why it kind of made more sense for him to stay. I know. It is exciting, but also a little terrifying to think about.
Yes.
Yeah. So, we're dual military. We spent a lot of time apart when we were both active duty. There were a few years where we were both on ships, and ship schedules they're just out to sea a lot. So we, did deployments at the same time or offset deployments. We spent probably about a year apart where we only saw each other for a few weeks, kind of when we both happened to be home. So we spent a lot of time apart, and that's the main reason I decided to get out. But because of that, we move around a lot. We met a lot of people throughout our military career, and we've always just kind of enjoyed hosting and entertaining them. We never lived near our family because we're military and on a coast near the water, and that's not where our family lives. They live in Missouri in the middle of the country. So we always like to open our home and invite others in and host and entertain them. So we did it a lot, and I just kind of thought after I got off active duty, why not document it in some sort of a form? So 5 years ago, I started the Daily Hostess blog, and then that's kind of grown and changed over the years. So that's kind of how it got started and where we're at now.
That is amazing. And I just have to say, so my husband was on a ship for a little bit in his career as a Marine. And that ship life is crazy. Like when you talk about how crazy the schedule is, that is 100% true. I mean, he would tell me all kinds of stuff about this ship and that ship, and I'm like, okay. So I can't even imagine being a dual military family where both of you guys are on a ship. So that probably had to present challenges in itself.
It definitely did. Like I said, the Navy wouldn't allow us to be on the same ship, nor would I have wanted to be on the same ship with my husband.
Right?
What he does,
Hey, I get it. Most people don't want to work with their spouse, and I could assume that would be no different.
yeah, like I love him and he's great at what he does. He's a great leader and a great officer and a great sailor, but I don't think it would have been the best idea for us to be on the same ship. But because we were on separate ships, our deployment schedules were completely different. He was in a different strike group than I was. And, so he left for deployment. And then I think 3 or 4 months later, it's so bad. I feel like I should know the timing, but it's such a blur that I don't really remember. So I think 3 or 4 months later, I left for my deployment. So he got back a few months before I did. And then I got back a few months after him. So it ended up being about a year during that time frame where we were both on ships. But even outside of that, with ship schedules, you have multiple training underways or multiple exercises that you do where the ship's just gone. And then whenever you are in port, our duty schedules never really aligned. So there would be, several days a week where I would be on the ship for 24 hours on duty and it didn't align with his duty days. So there'd be a couple days a week where one or both of us were just gone away from the house. So yeah, we spent a lot of time apart, but I think it really made us appreciate the times that we had together and allowed us to want to spend that time together after we both got off ships. So we kind of waited having kids a little bit. I think a lot of people our age, their kids are a few years older than ours, just because we wanted to spend some time together. We hadn't really gotten to do that. So we spent a little bit more time together before we even had kids. So that kind of lifestyle and that schedule affects so many different things, not just you and your spouse, but your future family or things like that.
Absolutely. So the Daily Hostess, let's talk about that because, of course, as soon as Amy reached out to me, I started researching because if you don't know, I'm pretty particular about people that I have on my show because I want it to be informational to my listeners, obviously. And she just knows the way to my heart. I'm sitting there looking at her website and all of the planning and, the mention of just the organization and the wanting to plan and host and things like that. And that truly just speaks to me because when my husband and I bought the house that we live in now in South Carolina, I told him, when we were in California, my best friend, her house was basically the host house and everybody always went there. And it was something that growing up, my house was the host house. And I've always wanted a house to be able to be that, to be able to have people over and have parties and friends and just make all of these memories. So when we moved to South Carolina, I told my husband that was a requirement. And now, thank goodness, we actually have a host house. So I'm so excited to meet someone else that loves hosting things and organization and actually has a podcast and a website about that.
Yeah. Oh, it warms my heart to hear that, one, that you can appreciate it, but that you have that desire to have a house where everybody, goes and celebrates together. That is totally what I always want my house to be. So, and I don't know if I've ever verbalized it in that way. So thank you for that. And yeah, it's just so good to hear somebody else that kind of knows the beauty and being able to host people and celebrate them, especially in this lifestyle of being a military family where you're not around your normal support group of your own family. You have to build your own. So that's just something I've learned over the years is as we've moved from command to command and place to place is those things are so important. And the biggest, easiest way to do it is just to make that first step and open your home and invite someone in. So that is what I just try to encourage everybody to do at the Daily Hostess. it started out as a blog where I just kind of documented the parties and the celebrations that we had, which we've had a lot. I have a podcast episode where my husband and I actually sat down and talked about lots of different celebrations that we've had over the years. And as we were doing it, it just brought up so many memories of, oh my gosh, we did so much stuff. But so it started out documenting that. And then it's definitely morphed into more of a place for inspiration and encouragement for anyone that maybe is more reluctant. They can come to get help and tips and guidance on how to, open your home, invite others in and host them. Or if you're a seasoned pro, like it sounds like you are, to get some inspiration of maybe different ways to do it or to organize things better. So that's kind of the blog side of my business. It's really just a place for encouragement and inspiration.
I love that. I also have to say that I love the fact that you have had your husband on your podcast. It has been almost 2 years and I still have not had my husband on my podcast. And let me just tell you, people that follow me on social media know that my husband is just, he is something else. Like he, as much as he will never admit it, is pretty much the life of the party. Like he's just really, really funny. And so people keep asking me all the time, like, when are you going to have your husband on your podcast? And I'm like, I don't know that the world is ready for that. So the fact that you have actually had your husband on your podcast gives me a little bit of hope and kind of a push to be like, okay, maybe I should get him on my podcast and just see where it takes us, because I'm sure it would be nothing shy of entertaining.
Yeah, at the very least, it would be entertaining. But I think I thought it was interesting when I did it with my husband. He has I don't want to call it a side gig, but he has a real estate investment company as well as being active duty. So he's actually been a guest on numerous podcasts, but I kind of thought it was interesting when he sat down with me. I could see a few times where he got kind of like nervous or like didn't really know what to say. So it was kind of interesting being the one, I don't know, in power and control or, comfortable in that space and having him there a little bit uncomfortable. It was kind of interesting, but it turned out to be such a fun episode. So I highly encourage you to do it. It's so fun.
Yes. Yes. I think, like I said, I think that gives me like that little push to actually do it. Especially because he and I have been together for so long that we have so many memories and just so many, times together that I know there would be no shortage of things to talk about. But then I'm like, do I really want people hearing what he has to say about me?
Oh, I'm sure it would be totally fine.
Well, he should know better. So, okay. Anyway, back to the Daily Hostess. So you started it as a blog. When did you move into the podcast portion of it?
So the podcast is super recent. It just came out in May of 2020. So I don't know when your listeners are listening to this, but May of 2020 is when I launched. And it really was because of our lockdown and quarantine during coronavirus. So we have 2 small children. We have a 6-year-old and a 3-year-old, but my husband during that time was not going into work. He would just have, work phone calls a few times a day. So I had a lot more time because he would kind of handle the kids and I could focus on things. And it gave me the time to grow that branch of my business. And I love podcasts. So I wanted to start one, and I love the media of being able to have an actual conversation with someone. Sometimes in the blogging world, it's very one-dimensional in that you're putting content out, but you're not necessarily getting a ton of feedback. So I felt like podcasting was a way to go. And I really wanted to reach people that needed that encouragement to build connections or build community because they move a lot, or, they have a work lifestyle that requires them to, go on work trips a lot and they're not home a lot or things like that. So I thought that was just the best medium to do it. And it's been such a fun project so far. And I'm really excited to see where it goes.
Absolutely. I mean, I love podcasting, obviously. I know Amy and I were talking a little bit before we started recording about how long I've been doing it. And I shared with her, when I started my podcast, I never thought I would be here almost 2 years later, still talking about military spouse stuff. So it's a wonderful medium and a great platform. And I'm super excited that you are in this podcast arena, I guess, and that you've been able to share your wealth of knowledge with so many other people now, too.
Yeah, it's been really fun. I guess I should mention the podcast is Conversations with the Hostess. So it is about, hosting and parties and, ways to do that better. But it really, the root of it is, do those things a little bit better. So maybe you can invite more people in or expand your social circle or meet your neighbors or things like that. So it really is about building community. And I'm really happy to have new and interesting guests on every week that we get to talk about those things.
Which I think as a military spouse, you talked about building a community. I think that is so important as a military spouse because we all know that, like you said, most of us don't live close to family because we're on the coast somewhere.
Right.
And we're moving so frequently that it's almost next to impossible to have a community where you're at for an extended period of time. So building a community that you can kind of take with you, and then, building a new community wherever you go, I think is very important for military spouses and military families in general.
I completely agree. I think it's important to kind of lay those, kind of hit the ground running whenever you get to a new place. And like personally, I think the best way to do it is really, bake the cookies and go to all your neighbors. It's to say hi to the moms at school drop off. And it's going to be awkward and it might feel weird and you might get a rejection occasionally, but a lot of times, you make your best friends or you have your best support system that comes out of, taking that first step and doing that and having people over to your home. It puts you in a little bit of a vulnerable place, but I think that's what people can connect with. When they do see that you're in your home and there might be kids' toys all over the place, or your sink is full of dishes or something like that, they can relate to that and they, want to get to know you better and build a deeper connection. As a military spouse or a military family, I don't think we have time for those kind of surface level friendships. When you move every 2 or 3 years, you have to kind of go deep with people quick and realize, is this a person that I want to invest the short time that I have here with, or do I need to move on and find the person that, I can put down as my emergency contact, or the person I can call and say, hey, I need you to come over and watch the kids because I have to run and go do something, real quick, or I made a really big dinner. Can you come help me eat it? Whatever it might be. But we don't have time for that, the niceties and the surface level and taking a long time to get to know someone. We have to get there quick. And the easiest way is just to host people and figure out if it's going to be a good fit or not.
Yes. And I love that you mentioned meeting the neighbors and baking the cookies and things like that, because let me just tell you, when I moved into my house here, I found a like Facebook group for our neighborhood. And because first of all, there was a stray cat in my house that I wanted to keep, and I was trying to figure out if it actually belonged to someone so I could keep it. But one of my neighbors commented and said, "Oh, did you just move in? Where are you at? Blah, blah, blah." And so I told her, and here she comes with macarons, fresh and ready for me to eat. And I'm not kidding you. Ever since then, she and I have been really close. I go to like markets and help her out. She watches my kids. I watch her kids. It really has allowed us to form that true friendship. And if she would not have brought the macarons over, I would have probably never even had the opportunity to meet her, because I work full time. I have a kid who's in extracurricular activities. My husband works, so it's not like we just go door to door to meet our neighbors. But she took that extra time to bring those to me, and it definitely paid off.
Yeah. And sometimes it's really just taking that simple step. And it might sound like extra work, but what I always kind of tell people, like, what would you be missing out on if you didn't do that? You never know. You have this great friendship with her now. And if she wouldn't have done that, or if you wouldn't have decided, I'm going to be brave and go onto the Facebook group and post something, but that never would have happened. So it really is just taking that first step and, being brave and doing it scared and seeing what happens.
Right. Absolutely. So, I want to talk a little bit about your website. First of all, I'm in awe of it because it is beautiful and
Oh, thank
amazing
you.
and wonderful. So, when others go onto your website, I just want you to tell them a little bit about what they will find, all of the wonderful things that they will find on your website because it just is so beautiful.
Thanks. That makes me feel good. I did have a designer help me with it, so I can't take full credit. But
She's like, I'm not going to take full credit, but
yeah, no. The first edition of it, I mean, I did everything from scratch when I first started the blog, and it was a huge learning curve, which I think as somebody that felt fairly educated, or I was a professional in the Navy. I'd done hard things on ships and on deployments before, and then you get in front of a computer and WordPress and you're like, I don't know what to do here, and you're YouTubing everything. So it was nice to kind of stretch my knowledge base and my abilities. So I really credit starting the blog to a whole new avenue of learning different things that I never would have learned had I not done it. So, and not even just with the blog, but so many other things, just online content creation. There's so much that goes into it that I've learned since then. So, that's a side note, but it's, if there's something that you're wanting to do, think of it as a learning opportunity, because I've definitely learned a lot since I started. But yeah, so the blog started, like I said, to kind of document our gatherings and celebrations that we were having. So on the blog, you find real life parties that we host, and inspiration for them. I do a lot of kind of quick and easy ways to get that kind of Pinterest perfect party, but show you how to do it a little bit cheaper, a little bit faster, a little bit easier. And I think one of the things that I really try to stress is encouraging people to, you kind of want that Pinterest perfect party, but that takes a lot of time and effort. And there are certain ways, certain areas to kind of focus your party planning or what you do at a party or any sort of celebration that can still get you that wow factor, but it's not like, draping an entire room in fabric and having all these flowers and lights and stuff, because that's just not realistic. So I try to encourage people to do realistic things that still make a really big focal point or a big wow moment at your get together, and do it on a little bit of a smaller budget, or take the stress out of it for you. So those are the kinds of the encouragement and inspiration that you're going to find when you go there. And the best thing I feel is whenever somebody sends me a message on Instagram or on Facebook or something like that, or leaves a blog comment and they say, I love this and I'm going to use it for my daughter's baby shower or whatever it might be. And it just warms my heart knowing that somebody is, using these ideas in their own way and being able to celebrate with them. So I love that about it.
yes, and I think it's amazing that you know, like you said, everybody I feel like wants this wow factor at their party and wants to feel like their home is good enough. But Pinterest is a liar. I mean, they're like DIY only $240 later. I
Yeah,
can't
I've
tell you
certainly
how,
done some of those DIYs and it's
right?
never a good time.
No, I can't tell you how many times I'm like, send something to my husband and I'm like, I'm gonna do this. And then it's like 6 hours later and like 3 trips to the store. And, I'm like, why did I do this? They said it was gonna be easy. They lied.
Yeah.
And it was also super expensive. I could have just bought
Mm-hmm.
it for cheaper than I made it. So I do love and appreciate the fact that you are, money conscious with your things and try to give those tips and tricks to have that wow factor and do those DIY things, but easier and more affordable because we all know military families are super, super rich. Insert eye roll.
Yeah, especially
um,
when you have to like move every 2 or 3 years and
Yeah.
household goods get lost and you have to replace half of your house or whatever the case may be. So yeah, you don't have to
Yes.
spend your money on, party stuff. So, yeah, I hope to help people in that way. And I think a lot of times people get really stressed because maybe they're not sure what to do or how to do it. And I think the biggest thing to focus on to reduce your stress is kind of like streamlining certain things. So I share ways to make sure that you're prepared on time so that you're not running around on party day. Like there's definitely been times where I can't even greet guests because I'm still like setting something up or dealing with food or whatever. So I kind of hope to help streamline some of those things so you're not rushing around on party day or, fumbling over the decoration or whatever, or trying to put stuff everywhere in your house when it's like, no, just my biggest thing is like, do one thing, like have one focal point, whether that be the table, whether that be your food buffet, whether that be a photo backdrop, whatever it is, just find one place and that's what you focus on. And it will still, the party theme will still come across and people will still be excited to be there or think that you did a great job or have fun, even if it's just one thing. So um, that's what I really try to tell people because I think a lot of times we get so stressed out with all the things that we need to do, and that's just not necessary.
Yes, I know I am one of those people that stresses over all the things, and I'm usually like running around with my hair not done in like my
Yes.
pajamas with sweat rolling down my face,
Yep.
and
I have
guests are
been
showing
there.
up, and I'm like, crap, no.
That is another one of my like key tips is no matter what happens, it happened to me once where I was legitimately in like paint covered old sweatpants because that's what I was in and didn't have my hair done. And I was running around and guests started coming and I literally had to like hide and run upstairs to get ready. But I recommend to everybody all the time, the first thing you do on party day is to get ready because you want to feel presentable and yourself ready whenever the party starts. And if you have to stop at some point and like go touch up your hair, go touch up your makeup, that's a lot faster than like doing the whole shebang as the party starts.
Yes.
So
Yes,
yeah.
that's a great tip. And that's probably something I don't know why, but I would have never really thought about. I guess because I'm so focused on like getting everything done and making sure everything's done. But like you said, guests would, I'm sure, rather see me, you know, preparing, finishing preparing food or setting up a last minute decoration or something rather than running around in my pajamas with sweat rolling down my face, my hair not done.
Exactly. And all that stuff that you're like rushing around doing, like put your guests to work. That's stuff they can help you with. If you, which anytime I know for me, I go to someone's house and they're hosting me, I always ask, is there anything I can do? Do you need help with anything? People don't ask that just to ask it. Like if there's really something
Yeah.
that you need help with, I'll put them to work. So hang this streamer up here or stir this sauce or something, like there's simple things that they can help with. They can't help you
Yes.
like curl your hair or put on your makeup. So
Right. That's very true though. Because I'm the same way. Anytime I go, if I can tell that somebody is flustered, I'm like, what do you need help with? What do you need help with? Because I've obviously been there.
yep, me too.
So I always ask to truly try and help them out. So that's a good reminder, for people that are hosting. If they ask, let them do because, like you said, they're not asking just to ask.
Right. And sometimes even if it's something as simple as, hey, can you go take the kids in the other room and get them away from my feet
Yeah.
when I'm trying to do things and just entertain them for 10 minutes and then I can be done as opposed to it taking 30 minutes because I have to deal with them. So there are simple things that, if somebody's worried about being in the kitchen or they don't know how to tape up a streamer or something, there are things people can still do to help you and use them. And that way it's all done and everybody can then enjoy the party together.
Absolutely. So, one thing that I would like you to talk about is on your website. I know that there is a shop button and there's all these different party plans. So, can you talk a little bit more about that? Because to me, that is super, super helpful, super, super resourceful and totally wonderful for someone wanting to plan a party.
Yeah. Thanks. I'm glad that you checked that out. So
I told you, I do my research.
yeah, no, that's good. I offer just another branch of my business that has kind of over the years developed. I a lot of times would get feedback from people saying, this is great. Like, I love this inspiration, but how do I actually do it? So I put together these party plans, which is really just a digital resource guide that walks the customer or the person who's throwing a party through step by step everything you need for whatever your specific party theme is. So I put together checklists and design plans and curate inspiration pictures for your party so that you have a list of things to do. And it saves people a ton of time because they don't have to sit on Pinterest and find all the things and lose track of the tabs and not remember to pin something and they can't find it later. It saves people money because they have just the list that they need. They're not going out and buying a bunch of stuff that they end up not using at the party. And I think it is a really stress-free way, especially if like hosting is not your forte and if you don't really know where to begin. So say you're throwing like a baby shower for a friend and you're not really into that thing. I have tons of baby shower party plans where, we can pick a color scheme and a theme and I do all that work for you. So you just have to kind of follow your to-do list, execute the idea, and then enjoy the party. So I think it really just helps you, if you're feeling overwhelmed by planning a party, I do all that planning for you and take away the stress and save you the time and the money so that you can just follow the list and do the work, which I think most military spouses or people associated with the military are somewhat type A and love a good list. So I feel
Yes,
helpful in that way.
absolutely. Now let me ask, because if I were listening to this, I would want to know, because you mentioned about, having to host a party that's not maybe like your jam, so to speak.
Right.
Do you do custom party plans for people? So like, let's say I had to host a baby shower. Baby showers aren't really my thing. Would I be able to reach out to you and ask you, hey, could you put together basically a custom party plan for this baby shower that I have to host?
Yeah, that's exactly what I do. And those are always really fun for me because it sometimes is maybe something I wouldn't have planned for myself. So I get to, I enjoy that process of it, of going on Pinterest and like putting the list together and finding ideas. So when I get to do it for somebody else and it's a theme or an event that I'm not used to hosting, it's really fun for me. So I definitely do custom ones. There are some party plans that are just already on the website and that you can shop from. I do a monthly party plan. So you can subscribe to get the whole year or 6 months or just 1 month off, 1 month at a time. But so those are there as well. But I love doing the custom ones because I get to do stuff that maybe I normally wouldn't plan for myself.
Absolutely. And like when I'm hearing you talk and when I'm thinking about this, I'm thinking really fun birthdays. Like I would love like a 2000s hip hop birthday.
Oh my gosh,
So
yes.
I'm thinking of fun birthdays, but I'm also thinking, I guess because it's getting close to that time for my husband, retirement from the
Yep.
military. Because I already know that day is going to be crazy enough because there's a retirement ceremony and then you have to have the party. And, so like I said, I'm already thinking ahead of that and thinking, yeah, I could go on Pinterest for the next 5 years and then my whole board is going to be mumble jumble. And then the time's going to come and I'm going to freak out because I don't have what I need. But instead, I could just reach out to Amy and be like, hey.
Yeah, exactly. And like, especially in this community, I've planned retirement ceremonies when I was on active duty. I've attended numerous retirement ceremonies. So there are certain things with the military aspect that you're not necessarily going to find just anywhere by, someone helping you. So it's definitely something that I am more than willing to help with. Those kind of maybe not common in the civilian world celebrations that we celebrate in the military.
Yes. And I think it's huge to have someone who, like you said, understands the active duty aspect, the reservist aspect, the veteran aspect, and the spouse aspect of that military life to help, especially planning with things like retirement. The other thing that like literally just came to my mind is that our unit is now starting to do, our spouses are starting to do more things together just to try to get to know each other and get that community. And I'm just thinking, man, this is something that would be perfect for a get together, to have, maybe a themed party where we just have drinks and desserts and things like that. And to have someone basically plan that would be totally perfect.
Yeah, that's another really great way to use, the service is to build that community and to meet new people. And what better way to do it than kind of a fun theme or, a fun kind of decoration as opposed to just, normal come over to my house and let's have wine and cheese or something. So yeah, using them for that. And another one that I would love to help more people do is I think especially like, as a woman in the military, when I was active duty, I didn't have kids, so I don't have that experience. But even as a reservist, there have been times where I've missed first days of schools or my son's first steps or things like that, even though I'm pretty sure my husband lied to me and told me that he didn't walk while I was gone. And he started it like after I'd gotten back. But I would love to help those deployed moms when, they are gone and deployed, still somewhat be involved with their families, big moments or their celebrations, and help them plan the party theme or colors or games or food, while they're gone, and just give all that information to the, support parent or support person at home so that they can execute it and carry out the party. Especially if I know, like in a lot of cases, like if dad's at home, he might not be the one that's normally in charge of like the celebrations and maybe doesn't know what to do or how to invite the other kids from school over for a birthday party or how to decorate for the birthday party. So it would be a huge help for that support person when they're home and their spouse is deployed, to have a little bit of help in making those celebrations really memorable and feeling like everyone's involved, even if they're not physically there.
Yes, I love that so much. We have been pretty fortunate to not have to celebrate a birthday without dad yet. But we've had Christmases and Valentine's and Father's Day. Oh my gosh, Father's Day. Because, the kids usually have some sort of Father's Day event at school with dad. Like my daughter's last one was donuts with dad, and I'm like, well, hey, here I am. So yeah, just to be able to have that, like you said, when the other one is gone, I think is so thoughtful and something like I obviously wouldn't have ever thought of. And I think it's amazing that that's available to spouses.
Yeah, I mean, those things are still really important. And, life doesn't pause when a spouse deploys. And you still, especially we kind of want to make things normal for your kids, I guess, or as normal as possible. And still celebrating those things does that. And if you don't really know how to do that, or you're not, it's not your forte, or it's not something that the role that you've normally had, then, ask, get some help. And that's where your community can come in too. If you have a friend, another military spouse, a friend or something, ask them to help you and see if maybe they're better at baking a cake than you are or something like that. And just, crowdsource your party with people that are in your community and in your support system to still make it special for whoever it is that you're celebrating, and making it somewhat normal still.
Yes, I love that. So really quick, I want to touch before we have to go. I want to touch on your podcast a little bit more. So what platforms are you currently on with your podcast? Obviously, Apple, I'm sure.
Yep. Apple and Spotify, and you can just search Conversations with the Hostess and you can find them there. And I'll be expanding to other platforms soon. It's just, with kids and up down and working from home, some of these things take time. And that's definitely something I've learned with my business over the years and blog over the years is, you have all these great intentions, but sometimes things take a little bit longer, but that's okay.
Of course, you'll get there eventually. It just might take a little bit longer.
Exactly. When I'm 2 years in, like you are, I'll be all over the place.
Oh, I know. It's still so surreal to even think that I'm that far in. So trust me, if you keep going, which I know you will, pretty soon in 2 years, you're going to be like, man, 2 years? That was nothing.
I hope so.
You will, I promise. So before we go, is there any other things or thing that you want my listeners to know about you or your business or your podcast? How can they find you? Obviously, is a one that everybody needs to know.
Yeah, so you can find everything from thedailyhostess.com. I'm on Instagram and Facebook at The Daily Hostess, and everything's kind of under that umbrella brand. The podcast is Conversations with the Hostess, and that's on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And I think the biggest thing, I really just try to encourage people to, build your community, make deeper connections by hosting, because it is the best way to do it. When you invite people in and feed them, they're going to love you and want to be around you. So
it's so true. Everybody loves food.
Exactly. So just, try it. And if you're scared to do it, take the first step, invite one person, and, see how it goes from there.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for being here with me today. One thing I love about having guests on my show is I always learn so much about so many different things. And today obviously proved to be no different. So thank you for being here with me today and talking about everything from active duty military to reservist to spouse to the Daily Hostess to Conversations with the Hostess. I greatly appreciate you being here.
Thank you so much, Jenna. This was so fun.